This is such a wonderful event, and I'm so happy to be here. I apologize, I was a little delayed today, dealing with all of the crime and the violence, the corruption, the backstabbing, the scandals, and that's just in our newsroom. So, I mean, it's a rough world out there, but we're all trying to make the best of it. I'm delighted to be here to introduce my very good friend, who has been a good friend for many years. And Shelly Palmer is a real genius. I think we all know that. And I wanted to follow up because he's always doing something new. And so I got on my iPhone and checked in with Siri to find out, if he was doing anything special. And I got to tell you, Shelly, we got a problem here. Siri's upset. And I'm not quite sure what it is, but she was mumbling something about know-it-all, know-it-all. I think you need to make a heart-to-heart digital call there and straighten things out, okay? The truth is that he does know it all, and we know that. He's the best in the business. We love him at Fox, and everybody who meets Shelly knows that he's a very special individual. He's a distinguished author. He is a guy who hosts an Emmy-nominated digital living show on Fox television. He does great. He's also heard on United Nations or United Stations, maybe United Nations as well, United Stations Radio. He's got a syndicated radio program. We also know that he's the managing director of Advanced Media Ventures Group, and we love him because he's also an executive, a key executive, with the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, so give that man an Emmy. I think he really deserves it. He's an expert, a true expert on social and digital media, and we know he's a pioneer in internet technologies. Shelly has created a lot of different things, a lot of exciting technology for television shows like Monday Night Football, and also Millionaire, the game show. He's been part of all of that. Perhaps you don't know that, but he really has a great background. It's not all. He's also a highly distinguished music composer and a producer. Did you know that? This is really interesting. He won an ASCAP Film and TV Music Award for ABC's hit Spin City. Shelly has also written a lot of music themes. I think he worked on Regis and Kelly Live. And also another big accomplishment, he created something that perhaps you're aware of. But you know that digital cat that they had going meow, 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 meow? That's Shelly. He's the guy who created that for Meow Mix. And aside from all of that, Mr. Garfield, he's also a great person. He's a terrific guy to work with. He's a very special human being. He's a family man, I know that for sure. A loving family man. He's a great father and a grandfather, and he's got a very warm and generous heart. He's very good to all of his friends, including me, and that's why I'm here. So it's a pleasure indeed to introduce to you today's host and moderator, Shelly Palmer. Shelly.
See, when I asked Ernie to introduce me, I didn't know he was actually going to introduce me. God bless you. That was fantastic.
I love you too.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Ernie Anastos, Fox 5. Okay. Tonight, if you're not actually busy here, you can probably stream Fox 5 on some device you might be holding in your pocket. Ernie, God bless. I'll see you on the news. Okay. Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you. I'm glad you're all seated. Thank you so much. We are going to start with a panel that is near and dear to my heart. And the reason I got introduced is because I hadn't had a chance to introduce myself, and I want to introduce this panel. I'm calling this the President's Panel because we have presidents. So presidents, come on up and let's talk president stuff. Now, in every panel that I ever attend, I always think to myself, how am I going to make this interesting for me? Because I do an awful lot of panels. And so what I tend to do is try and mimic, or I shouldn't say mimic, I try to emulate the Socratic method wherever possible. I'm here for your enjoyment. I'm really not here for me. So these guys might agree on a whole bunch of stuff. The thing is, if I do agree, how boring would that be for you, right? Global warming is warm. Yeah, global warming is really warm. And by the time you're done, you're all asleep. I want to do it the way they do it on the Fox News side, which I don't have anything to do with whatsoever. Global warming is terrible. No, it's awesome. And then you have a fist fight. That's what we're going to try and do for you today. Some kind of serious fist fight between four presidents who I like a lot. Now, we got John Sykes up here. John Sykes works at Clear Channel. They're a small little radio company that just put on the greatest show on earth, iHeartRadio. That festival in Las Vegas, I never had more fun. Well, actually, at Oktoberfest, I did have more fun, but that's not the point. The point is that was an awesome festival. We have Mark Pedowitz, president of the CW. You might have heard of that. They are a little TV network. And then we have Tad Smith from Cablevision, and we have Craig Hunegs from Warner Brothers. The goal here today is really simple. I hate television. Discuss. Yeah, you leave all
Does this
four
work?
mics on, yeah.
I think everybody actually loves television, and you know, it's frankly a great time to be in the television business because there are more ways for our audience to watch the shows they love than ever. It's easier. People are watching more of what we consider television, which is serialized television programming on any platform. To us, we're agnostic about it. Doesn't really matter where our shows appear. In fact, the easier it is to find our shows, the easier it is to watch them, the better it is for us.
So in case you're wondering, this panel actually, I won't, well, I need this, is it to make you happy? Okay. So this panel is actually very curated in the following way. Tad represents a distributor that has a direct consumer relationship at Cablevision. Mark is a broadcast television network. Craig makes a bunch of shows. And John has taken a medium that's supposed to be completely dead, radio, and invigorated it in a digital way that just, to be honest, astounded and amazed the entire industry. And so we've got 4 different points of view, 4 different business models. This is the platinum age of television. It's apparently the platinum age of radio. Discuss.
Well, let me start with this one. All 4 business models are all interconnected. John's radio and his entertainment side needs television to help promote the apps and iHeart and everything else, and we do that with John. Cablevision has the VOD platform, let alone the stations, and the VOD platforms allow all of us to get added viewing. And now, someday we'll all figure out what days 4 to 28 mean on VOD, but it allows us to have added viewing. And Craig, through the content provider as the studios and all the studios, we're all platforms for him, either through advertising on radio, or through telecasting and broadcast, or through Cablevision, or through international sales. We're all interconnected. Now, going back to TV for a second, Shelly, television in its definition now is any screen. It's not just turning on your TV set. It is any screen.
And oddly enough, now so is radio. Radio is any platform and any screen. As Mark said, we are interconnected. And at Clear Channel, since we reach 240 million people a month, we look at every day, what is the opportunity to reach that consumer? It might be through our terrestrial radio stations with Ryan Seacrest or Elvis Duran reaching millions in the morning, or through a partnership with the CW, which extends the brand to that platform. Or obviously iHeartRadio, which now has about 240 million downloads of the app. We're jumping ahead a little bit to the questions that were on the sheet, but basically it's what keeps you up in the morning, how you take advantage of all these opportunities, because we're all in this 360-degree business now because the consumer demands it.
So on that point, what is keeping you guys up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I would say
Jim Dolan calling. Just kidding.
no.
Well, I'm glad I didn't actually say that out
He's
loud.
my friend, I can say that.
Still,
Yes.
cord cutting keeps me up at night. I don't think it's a large phenomenon, but there's certainly a lot of hype and attention to it, and that does keep me up at night. On the other hand, I'll point out, though, that the more of that there is, the more there is demand for your cable's ISP business. And so things like Netflix and other heavy broadband consumption and also use of our Wi-Fi, we love that.
I think the interesting thing about cord cutting is that if you were reverse engineering television, what people would want, and I mean consumers as well as business people, is exactly what we have now. If you started with something like YouTube, you know, in a kind of a smorgasbord of short-form video, what people would want would be to hear and experience longer stories, which is what we call television series. What people want is some sort of aggregation or some sort of organization around those TV series, some sort of curation, We call those TV channels or TV networks. And what people would want is to not have to pay for those networks individually. I think what they'd want is to get this big bundle of everything they might happen to want to watch: entertainment, news, sports, all different points of views, all kinds of entertainment for one relatively reasonable monthly price, and that's cable. That's Cablevision. So again, I'm, sort of running against probably the digital perspective here, which is we've got a system, and this is not meant to be defensive, because we're rapidly evolving and very, very much supportive of, a broader form of distribution. I just want to point out that, wishing for something that is, a different version of video distribution isn't necessarily going to serve anyone's interest.
Wow, do I want to push back? Let me think. How shall I do that without getting you mad at me? Oh, I don't care. So look.
That was intended to be provocative for you, Shelly.
No, you got me. I mean, I'm going to take the bait. So the world, thankfully for this conversation, isn't as we design it. It's as it's evolved, and it's evolved based on a bunch of pressures. But there's a great quote from Henry Ford people love to misuse, and he said, and I quote, "If I asked my customers what they want, they would have asked for a faster horse." Now, everybody always assumes that means that the car wasn't something that should have been brought to market. And I would argue he did bring them a faster horse. It's called the car. And it was a much better horse, and it didn't, it ate a different type of food, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to say to you, okay, it evolved to where it is. I don't think I want to have all those cable channels I'm uninterested in. I would love an a la carte world, and I would like some beautiful hybrid of narration, aggregation, and low price, because I feel like, it's a grudge buy. I hate my cable bill. I don't have Cablevision. I have another carrier, but I love Cablevision. But no, but cable's a grudge buy. It's just a grudge buy. It's like gasoline. The product doesn't change. And you guys keep, you make nice shows because it's Warner Brothers, but there are, let's just say, networks that are unambiguously sucky, and I get them anyway. And I would rather not have that, so I don't know that I would have preferred. Show of hands, how many people like every channel on their cable system? Show of hands, how many love it? Notice how many people have their hands up. So I'm just,
but Shelly, I think you bring up a good point that you took up from what Craig just said, which is the key word now with all this choice, with all these platforms, is curation. That's why there still is a need for someone to pick shows at the CW. There still is the what you put on VOD, what you put up top, and there still is a need to organize and have people choose. They will choose that car if you present them with a great alternative to the faster horse. But if you ask people blankly what they want, they don't know yet. And so with this mass of just gobs of entertainment, you still need someone culling through it. You still need someone to curate, because that is how people discover things, and that's how you discover a great television show, a great song on the radio. So there still is a place for that, whether it's a cable package, whether it's a morning show DJ, or whether it's a primetime lineup.
So all things are not created equal. Let's flip the script a little bit. Jeff Zucker had this wonderful quote, "Why would I trade analog dollars for digital pennies or digital dimes?" I don't remember which small bit of change he was describing back in the day, but it showed off in a very serious way the disparity between the dollars available in both. And yet, when I look at iHeart, when I look at the downloads of the CW app, I'm seeing a real digital business, real consumer demand. How do you guys reconcile the business model? How are we going to play? Because the money doesn't seem to be equal in anywhere. And we're in the platinum age of TV, the art form, but TV, the platform, seems to have a lot of competition for consumers' point of view.
The money will follow. It's just a question, I think David and Jack probably up on an earlier panel, it's just a question of measurement. You have one currency at the moment in Nielsen. There is really no other competitor to it. They fail to, at this point in time, not because they want to fail at it, but they do in terms of not getting the tablet or mobile fully measured, which has a lot of audience across the board. They have successfully, if you encrypt correctly, get VOD. So VOD will count in your C3 ratings. But it's a real measurement issue. It's also a real change in how viewership is. You will see in viewership, people will wait 3-4 episodes, and then they'll binge. And then they'll get addicted to the series, and they'll either come back or they'll binge again. But again, in terms of monetizing all this, it's going to be based on someone developing a measurement system that actually works.
I think the structure of the online advertising market was never very good to begin with. It had too much inventory, and the prices had the resultant effect of being driven down. With programmatic buying or automatic buying, whatever you want to call it, I think that structure, the unattractiveness of it is actually exacerbated. So I think I'd be curious to know what Mark and Craig, what keeps them up at night. From my perspective, the role of the cable company in bundling an ecosystem that creates the opportunity for enough money to be aggregated to provide a lot of creative opportunities in high quality content is really, really important. And absent that, I'm not sure that whether it was digital nickels, dimes, or pennies, it's a particularly good picture.
So what's keeping you up at night, Craig?
Sleeping well. You know, for us, it's all about, we produce 60 television series this year. We produce for broadcast networks, cable networks. We produce for local TV stations. We produce shows for local markets internationally. And we produce, you know, increasingly we're in development on some projects with, you know, let's call them non-traditional channels like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And there are more and more buyers for what it is that we do well and for what it is that our audience loves. So, you know, from a production standpoint, from a creative standpoint, from a distribution standpoint, we feel really good about our business right now. What frankly keeps me up is just our ability to keep bringing really talented people to our studio to tell the stories that they want to tell. And so far we've remained a very talent-friendly studio. I mean, our raw materials, the thing that, you know, allows us to do what we love to do and are successful at is you know, again, bringing together really talented writers, producers, directors, and actors. And if for some reason we lost the ability to bring them to our studio, that would be the biggest risk I see.
I think with so much choice and so many opportunities out there, I think what probably keeps a lot of us up is, what did I miss? What's out there that I haven't seen yet? And are we ready to capitalize it in our company? I think many of us, I mean, I'm probably the oldest guy here, so it's going to be, grew up with television, syndication, and then all of a sudden in college, cable came around. That was the first disruptor. Okay, opportunities. And then obviously digital now has just blown the doors off of everything. So you look at it and you say, there's an opportunity every second. And all of what we do every day say, have I come up with that show idea? Have I come up with that concert idea? Have I come up with that? And that to me is equally painful and exciting, because I'm paranoid that we might miss it, but that paranoia drives me to want to succeed.
For me, it's how to get the shows heard. You know, it's in the marketing, it's in the social media, the utilization of social media, particularly with the audience at the CW, to how to reach out and find a path from all the other noise that's out there. You have so many shows now. You have so many places, traditional, non-traditional, that are producing, airing, broadcasting, showing, that how do you make your product heard? What makes you loud and noisy? What takes you out there? And then on top of that is, okay, they've seen it. Will someone measure it so that you actually get a true take of what's going on?
So I'd like to flip the script a little bit. I have yet to meet a broadcast executive or brand executive, in fact, any executive in the technology, media, and entertainment space, that can't articulate this problem perfectly, because I think we all know that there's too much choice. We're managing change, pardon me, adapting to change as our business. I'd like to use a trick from Hogwarts. I'd like to count back from 3, snap my fingers, and the world is now perfect for each of you. So perfect, in fact, that it's your fantasy architecture of your own business. How would your day go in the most perfect world that we could create from your perspective? Now, this is a business conversation, not a personal conversation. I have a feeling I know where this would go, especially if we had a bottle of scotch on the stage, but we don't. Strictly 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, the world is perfect. It's 2015. Everybody's carrying a handheld device. The world is 4G. Everybody is just connected. how's your day going now in a perfect world? What's the goal? What's the fantasy architecture that we can all look for as a roadmap?
I went first on what's going to be
Ah, okay.
I talked about what stresses me out.
Let's get John to answer.
Okay. All right, so I'll be the guinea pig. I'll jump in here. So you guys, it's like, I think for me and for the business that I'm in right now and love so much being back with Bob Pittman at Clear Channel is that if I could go 3, 2, 1, bang, is that we have really developed a sustainable digital model that really helps support and grow a healthy music business. I think we're doing a pretty good job right now with taking to new platforms in our relationship with CW and around the world with our television. But when it comes to music, I still believe that that there's a disconnect between some of the record labels and some of the distributors on how music, how to be compensated for music, and how to build a sustainable model. I think there's a lot of old statutory rate ideas out there. And when it comes to the future, we believe that revenue sharing will work where as we grow, our partners grow. So a perfect world would be we'd wake up, we were doing well, the music packages were doing well, the artists were doing well, and there wouldn't be everyone complaining about what's cannibalizing, what's hurting, whatever. You'd be back in 1977, people would be selling music again, and everyone would get paid. So I mean, so I know the rest of this is mainly television here today, but on that point, I
It's
think
content. We're all talking
we're
content.
for content
Yeah.
because the end of the day, it's got to work for both sides, and you need a sustainable model, and people have got to meet and make some concessions to thread the needle, and then we're going to have a healthy business. So that's my 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Okay, I like that. Craig, on the spot.
You know, the key thing is to make the experience of watching television better and better, to make it easier for people to find the shows that they want to watch, to discover new shows, and to watch them at their convenience. I think that's the trick, and to do that while we sustain the very healthy business that we have as a studio, and to do that, I believe we are going to need to have partners like we currently have with CBS and NBC and the CW and the full range of cable networks, and hopefully new partners like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon and others to be named. Because to make it a healthy business, you have to, again, platform the programs, and you have to aggregate a large audience, because what we do is expensive. To produce really great television, like producing really great movies, it's costly. And to pay for that, you have to have a large audience. You have to pull a large audience together. And so, again, I like the curation system, the aggregation system of TV channels and networks. I like the distribution system of Cablevision and Time Warner Cable and Comcast and DirecTV. We all need to make it a better user experience, and I think we're all trying to do that in our own way. And we've been a little bit slow off the mark, and I think that there are some services that have pointed the way for us. I think Apple TV, iTunes is a great experience. I think that Netflix is a great viewing experience. I think Hulu is a great viewing experience. What makes them all great, in my mind, is they're convenient to use, they're easy to understand, they're easy to navigate, they recommend shows to you that you'll want to watch. And I think that we as an industry, it's incumbent on us to sort of capture that very, sort of delightful user experience.
Okay, Mark, you want to weigh in on a 3, 2, 1, boom, you get what you want. What do you got?
The CW numbers look like CBS's.
See, he had time.
Well, that was easy.
Maybe a little younger.
They have to watch television.
Chad, what do you got?
I would just add that imagine a dome of connectivity over, for example, the New York metro area, where everywhere you go, you've got truly uninterrupted, outstanding quality broadband access. And so I think that is, in my mind, a necessary condition in a perfect state to be able to enjoy the kind of content and great product that the folks to my left produce. And certainly that would be my vision for what we're up to, and I'd be very excited to see that in an end state.
So it's interesting. User experience, a real business model where everybody gets paid, because it isn't exactly as fair as it could be, good numbers at scale, and of course ubiquitous technology. The thing is, we're headed there. So the only thing we don't know about is the timing, because people are going to have to get paid in a good way or they're not going to show up. User experience has to be great or people aren't going to come. Then we either get scale or the advertisers don't show, and the technology, nothing's going to stop that. I mean, nothing's going to stop the march of technology. And so the question is, how do we manage this very heterogeneous, very start and stop world? What would your advice be to the audience? Each of you is running a really good, healthy company that is delivering scale to advertisers, delivering great experiences to consumers. What's your advice about managing what I consider the most exciting but also most confusing time in any business, but certainly in the content distribution business?
I say take risks, because no one has the answer. And because you just said it yourself, confusing. We are, as much as we profess to know it all, I certainly, or pretend to profess that we know, we don't. And you got to be able to be in a culture that takes risks short term, so you can recover, get up, dust yourself off, change direction. But when you don't have the answers, if you're paralyzed, then you lose. And we found in dealing with some of the bigger companies, they tend to be more paralyzed than the indies, who are willing to take those risks and give it a shot. I've had a great relationship with a CW where you can have a call on Monday and get an answer on Friday, because they're nimble, they're fast, they think. Well, I believe that with all this going on right now, you try it. If you make a mistake, you course correct.
I think it's flexibility. It goes a little bit to what John said. It's about being willing to take risks, being flexible, because you don't know that the direction you're headed in is going to be the correct direction. Once you realize that that's not going to work, try something else. But it's about flexibility right now, and willing, as John said, you got to take your shots. And I give credit to CW, and this happened before I got there. They created a convergence model for television and digital, of which they found a way to get paid. And I think that's great credit to them in doing that.
My advice is try to look one turn down the road, maybe two. Don't try to look 4 or 5 turns down the road, because too many things will come along that are unexpected, and and if you've gone that, if you've tried to look that far off, you're going to end up way off course. And to me, and it's easier, I think, for all of us who are sitting on top of or working at successful businesses, it's easier for us to think this way, which is to think about how to evolve your business. I don't believe we're in the midst of a revolution that's going to upend media, that's going to upend my business or John's or Mark's or Tad's. I don't believe that. I think we all have to change. We all have to adapt. We are starting with significant advantages. And to John's point, the thing that we can do that will kill us is to not take chances and to not evolve. That said, again, we're starting with enormous advantages. There was one stat. I was talking with Jack and David Poltrak yesterday, and I asked David, I said, how many ad impressions does CBS get in a typical week? And so we did some quick math, and we realized that in prime time, that's 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. In a typical week, CBS has 6 billion ad impressions. So that's a business of scale. That's a business of enormous scale when you think about the kinds of ad impressions that are touted for online businesses. And there are many other statistics that go along with that with broadcast television and cable television. Point is, those businesses have huge advantages right now, the advantage of scale. And now it's a question of adapting and evolving in a smart way.
Actually, I'm with John. I think take risks is the right one. It's certainly why I work at the place I do, because we've historically done that, and I think that's exactly the right advice to give. The only other thing I would say is that particularly in a period of discontinuity, and we're in one, there is a tremendous amount of hype and fog. And when there's a lot of hype and fog, the most important thing is just ask good, commercially sensible questions, because the laws of economics have not been repealed. They definitely still exist, And so thinking through how the world might evolve with good, sensible, basic questions is really useful, but definitely take risks.
So lastly, I'm a middle manager in any company, and I have a boss who has just said what you guys have said, which is the smartest thing and the most hopeful thing I can hear. Fail early, fail often, fail cheap, move on. But I got numbers to make, and I'm not governed for innovation. And I got to walk in there and say to my boss, you know, I just heard our president say on a panel that I can fail and I can screw up and I can try something cheap. And of course, their manager looks at them and says, yeah, as long as you make your numbers this quarter, that's awesome. Discuss.
As long as you make your numbers, it's fine. Look, all of us on this panel, including yourself, Shelly, at some point in time, we took ideas, we took leaps, and we did not succeed.
Correct.
We dusted ourselves off and kept going, but we made our numbers.
It's also true.
The other thing you can do if you're a middle manager, I think, because I remember this back in the Viacom days when we had cable networks, we were turning around to VH1 or something, to give a heads up to your boss who's saying, yeah, take risks, but your numbers should say, maybe this quarter, next quarter, I'm not going to hit my numbers, but in 3 quarters, I will, and if it doesn't happen then you can swing me, and then you can shoot me. But so prepare them internally that I have this plan, and they can either say, well, no, you can't, so don't take that risk. And I know I got up in front of the big town hall and told everybody to take risks, but you got to make your numbers this quarter because they're tracking our stock, whatever. Or they'll say, great, I'll tell the analysts following the stock that basically the next 2 quarters don't expect anything, but third quarter we are. And so manage up in those situations would be my advice, having been there.
Yeah, that's great practical advice for someone who has to make their numbers, and we all do one way or another. I liked what Tad said earlier about the sort of fog that we find ourselves enveloped in sometimes now, and I think that the point that Tad made is exactly right, which is if you want to advocate for taking a risk, if you want to advocate for evolving your business or changing your business or trying something different or new, make sure that it makes sense and advocate and explain why it makes sense. And then I can't imagine there isn't a single one of the 4 of us up here who wouldn't tell you to go for it. In fact, I'm certain that we all would.
Outstanding. Let's give a big round of applause to the President's panel. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very, very much.